So I'm in Perth at the Oceanic Tobacco Control Conference, and we've just been at today's pre-conference workshop on social inequities in smoking, and I'm talking to Dr. Sally Dunlop from the Cancer Institute of New South Wales, who presented about social marketing, making the point that it's not social media. But you've done a study on the impact of social marketing on smoking, particularly for disadvantaged communities, yeah?
Yeah, well, today I summarised a lot of literature from Australia and also the US on the impact of social marketing on low SES smokers. And we know that social marketing campaigns have an impact on the general population, but today we were looking at whether they do have an impact for low SES smokers.
So can we talk first about what they are? What are social marketing campaigns? What do they?
Social marketing campaigns can encompass a wide variety of interventions, but I was focusing today on mass media campaigns. So they're the ads that we generally see on TV, and increasingly we see them online as well.
And when you say we know that they work for the general population, but you wanted to see how they would work for disadvantaged communities, why would there be a difference?
Well, there are a few hypotheses that smokers from disadvantaged groups might find it harder to quit, and that social marketing campaigns might not provide them enough impetus to go there. But I think the evidence that I presented today from a few reviews and 4 really good studies show that campaigns can influence low SES smokers. So we're talking about smokers with low income or low education, or those from more impoverished areas. And they can influence them in terms of increasing quit attempts, increasing calls to the quit line, and that smokers from those groups remember ads and perceive them to be effective.
And so what did they need? What did these ads have to do, or what did these campaigns have to do to be most effective in those communities?
So not every campaign is going to be effective for low SES smokers, and the things that have been found to be important are high levels of advertising activity. So campaigns with low levels of activity are probably unlikely to have an impact in those disadvantaged groups, but those with moderate to high levels of activity are the most likely to have effects in those groups. And ads which evoke a strong emotional response, either through graphic imagery or through a personal story, are the ones which have been found to have the most impact in those groups.
And they were 2 out of 4 different sort of messages. What were the 2 that were less likely to influence?
So the less likely to influence have been found to be the how to quit ads, which are generally ones which just tell smokers to call the quit line, or alert them to different methods of quitting, or encourage them to keep trying to quit. Those are the types of how to quit ads that have been studied. We are seeing newer types of how to quit ads which have been developed in Australia, and it will be really interesting to see whether they have an impact on low SES smokers.
How are they different?
They're focusing a bit more on increasing self-efficacy in smokers, so teaching smokers what the role of willpower is and how it can potentially be increased, and ads which encourage smokers to recognise that it's hard to quit and keep trying in the face of barriers. And there have been some ads developed which do have a bit of a personal story, or are at least moderately emotional in those how to quit ads. So that's why I think we're interested to see if they're different.
And the 4th one, which I really enjoyed, was
the anti-industry ads, which we don't have many of in Australia, but they're ads which attack the tobacco industry directly. They've been found to be effective for youth, but not particularly for low SES smokers.
Because, have you a theory behind that?
Well, it hasn't really been theorised, but potentially it's because low SES smokers might have lower levels of health literacy in terms of understanding the role that the tobacco industry plays in society. They may not be as tapped into that or thinking about that as much as higher SES smokers might be.
And if I can just go back quickly to the intensity, or the high intensity of the big campaigns, and you gave a lot of information about tarps and things like that, but could you sort of say briefly what is high intensity? Is that saturation? So
target audience rating points are a way of measuring advertising activity, and the minimum level of tarps that campaigns should generally be aiming for is around 1,200 tarps per quarter, which roughly equates to every smoker seeing one ad per week for a period of about 3 months. So if we're getting each smoker seeing one ad per week, then we're happy with that, and that would be considered a high intensity campaign.
Good. And around the emotional messaging, you said that you gave an example of that. Can you talk about that one?
I think that a really great example from Australia is the Zeta Advertisement, which featured a young mum. It's a terribly sad ad. A young mum in her late 30s who was at that stage dying of lung cancer and has since died. And she talks about the impact of her illness on herself, but also on her family. And it's really devastating. But one of the Victorian studies has shown that that ad actually increased calls to the quit line among low SES smokers at the same rate as it did as high SES smokers, which is unusual. So showing that that type of ad resonates particularly well with that audience.
And what do you think the messages were in that from her?
It's a strong message about family, and I think that we know that resonates with a lot of smokers.
Okay. And you're presenting tomorrow.
I am.
Do you want to give me just a little rundown on what you'll be saying, or no, more on the subject, what you'll be saying?
Tomorrow I'll be talking about how smokers quit, or how smokers in New South Wales quit, and whether they're using the available evidence-based methods of quitting, as well as using other methods of assistance, potentially use of e-cigarettes and things like that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.